Rusty Wallace Hyundai. That's where my wife and I bought our new 2025 Santa Fe, and she says it's the best car she's ever had. We couldn't be happier with everything. Their team was great through the whole process, and their service department is top-notch. Check out their new location at 505 Callahan Drive in Knoxville, Tennessee, or at rustywallacehyundai.com.
You figure a million roaches.
Yeah.
There are odors that go with them.
Entrepreneur, business owner, and pest control expert, Kenny Campbell of Kenny's Pest Control. Man, it's an honor to have you on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's a little overwhelming hearing all of those hats that I tend to wear now. Was not by design. I was not the guy that wanted to have his own business.
Well, how'd you end up in pest control?
If we go way back, I can see kind of some direction that God's given us.
Of course,
life.
yeah.
Have always struggled through school and stuff. And so when I was about 26, I was diagnosed as being attention deficit and dyslexic. Okay. So not the typical ADHD type, but just some attention deficit, dyslexia. Understood a little why school was tough growing up.
Of course.
My sister was going through a nursing program, and they had given her some directives, and she said, well, that sounds like my brother. So we got diagnosed through the state, and they said, okay. The doctor came in after the testing and said, okay, you cheated through school, didn't you? Yeah. I couldn't take the grades home I was making. He said, well, I can tell you this isn't unusual. This is not an unusual thing, but we've seen a lot of folks come through here, and you're going to get by. You have to get, you're functioning enough that you're going to figure out a way to get by. But he said, the levels of dyslexia and attention deficit do not match your transcripts. You couldn't have made the grades you were showing. Yes, okay. You just quit lying at some point. Like, no, this is just
you
reality. You
gotta own it at some point.
This is reality. So this is where I'm at. I guess about 10 years later, I got involved with pest control, and for me, it was just perfect. I'm generally at a house. If I start a new service with somebody, inside, outside, paperwork, chatting, I'm done in about an hour. For my brain style, that's about my tolerance. At that point, about an hour or so, I'm going to start getting a little antsy. So pest control has just been a blessing, And I got involved with a company that they allowed us to make a good living. It was commissioned, so if you did a good job, if you had to go back, you didn't get paid for it. So you got your commission the first time out. So the incentive was to do it right. They trained us. They got us in positions where we could succeed. And then they gave us a structure that we could make a good living with if we did a good job with it. Spoke with customers that I could converse well enough. People would trust me. I want people to know we're going to do our best.
Right.
We're going to don't always have the right answers, but we'll get it worked out. And so my route grew. The business grew. It was really great for about 16 years or so. Just a great company to work with. And towards the end, they were having some health issues. The owners were.
Yeah.
And they just finally said, we need to get out. So they sold it. Big international group came in, made a lot of changes, a lot of things I wasn't altogether comfortable with. So I told my wife about a month before all this really came down. I was with them for about a year and a half. And I told my wife at one point, I said, I really feel like I've got a piece about us doing our own thing. But I'm very comfortable where I'm at. I said, God's really going to have to give me a nudge if he's going to get us out. So about a week before Christmas, they sat each one of us down and said, we're changing the structure of your pay. It's going to work out about 40% 5% less than what we were making.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, that's an impact.
So
There's your incentive.
Yes, exactly. There's that nudge we were kind of looking for.
It's more of a shove.
Yes, and so I'm trying to figure out, how do you go home and explain the week before Christmas that this is happening? And that was it. I finally said, hey, I got that nudge.
Mm-hmm.
And we sent an immediate email out to our small group.
Yeah.
And a lot of support. Just everybody saying, yes, yes. One of the families just said, we don't know anything about pest control, but we'll help you financially. Whatever, you just let us know.
And that's through your church.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes, that was through our church and our small group. And so that was it was exciting.
Yeah.
Not exactly how I would, this isn't how Tony Robbins writes this stuff up. I think Tony Robbins is the success guy. And,
Yeah.
55 years old in the middle of a pandemic, starting a new business.
Well, one thing I noticed about your business is your branding. As soon as you pass like Kenny's Pest Control, she told me about it. So I Googled it, and man, I got it pulled up here. Like what you see is, first off, the hat right on the logo.
Yes.
That's a branding dream. And then, you kind of scroll down and there's you.
That's so cool.
That's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, that's you right here
Awesome.
with the hat. And you brought the hat today. But that's what makes you different and makes you Kenny's Pest Control. And that's awesome.
Caught my eye driving by, and I told him, I said, I got an idea. I love this sign. You got to check this out.
Well, and that came about part of our spraying. There's a lot of times winds blowing, whatever.
Absolutely.
You get wind blow stuff back on you.
Mm-hmm.
The hat had enough brim on it that it keeps things off my face when I'm spraying. After a while, several years of this with this other company, I'll try not to,
of course,
announce it,
absolutely.
but people started to recognize it.
Yeah.
I had people tell me, well, we didn't hear the doorbell or we didn't hear you knock, but we saw your hat going by the window, so we said, that's Kenny. We're okay.
Yeah.
Pandemic, my wife and I are in Sam's. It's raining. I don't generally wear a hat. Outside of work, I just don't wear it. It was raining, so I put it on when we went into Sam's. Everybody's masked up at that point.
Yep.
And I had 2 or 3 people come up to me in Sam's and said, Kenny, where have you been?
That's awesome.
And so my wife said, okay, we're keeping the hat.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's part of it, whatever. So
that's the brand.
None of this was planned. It's just kind of come about organically.
That's
How long have you been
I say organically. I feel like God's kind of
course
given us a lot of direction.
When you say organically, I include
We
God.
know.
So
Yes.
Always. How long have you been officially Kenny's Pest Control?
About 4 years this month.
Really?
wow.
So we've been out on our own, have had people step in at different points and kind of give us direction, have helped us out. Honestly, I'm not a big business guy. I would have been perfectly happy to keep my sprayer on for another 5 or whatever years I could do it and be done.
Yeah.
It's just been interesting to see the changes. God has brought people around us. I said, Lord, if you want us to do this, you're going to have to give me, you have to have the phone ring.
Yeah.
55. I didn't really have time to start completely over. I need people to call. I had limitations as to what I could actually do, having worked with another company with it. So within those restraints, I would drive around. I'd go to garage sales a lot. We decided, didn't decide.
That's smart.
I ended up in places where I knew I couldn't cold call. I could not knock on doors. I couldn't send things out without blanketing an area.
Yeah.
The attorneys basically said, you can go knock on the door, but you have to knock on every door in the subdivision.
Yeah.
You can't just cherry pick. And I understand, it's piracy and things that you want to avoid. But so I went to garage sales and I would see neighbors, folks that I had taken care of. They'd, oh, what are you doing? I said, we didn't know you were out on your own. They'd see that. They'd see the van. And so that helped. Facebook has
course.
been
Yeah.
a great friend to us. Again, a lot of people are on there. It's different now. Growing up, Facebook changes a lot of things.
Yes.
So if somebody calls you from start to finish, let's just say you get 2 customers, I would imagine, one that has a problem,
Right.
and one that's trying to prevent a problem, right?
Sure.
So walk us through what those scenarios look like, if you
Okay.
can.
Sure. And again, we'll add to those a little bit.
Okay.
If somebody calls in, they have never had service. The questions, and my wife and we've got Natalie in the office that they handle a lot of the phone calls. But first thing is going to be, when are you in this area? We have a small footprint, so we want to make sure we're not wasting their time. They're not,
Yeah.
if it's this area that we work in. After that, it's, are you having problems? Anything in particular? Have you had service with anyone before?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody coming from another company, and I learned this through experiences, you want to encourage that. If somebody's not having a great experience where they're at, we would like to be able to take care of that for them. So we will waive initials. Initials generally about 135, inside, outside, taking care of any of those problems.
And that's treatment included, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That's general pest control, spiders, crickets, ants,
I gotcha.
that's not termites or fleas or some different things
Right.
that require different types. So general pest control, we will waive that initial for them. They're coming a lot of times from another company.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily, we want to make it easy for them to change.
Yeah.
So if they know, we've got to go start all over somewhere, this makes it a little easier. It's a little tougher on us. I mean, because a lot of times we're fixing a problem,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of a courtesy to say, hey, we're going to make this as easy for y'all to come
Of course.
work
Yeah.
with us. So we give a break on that. Then we want to, again, I've got a couple guys working with me now, so figure out who's running where. But if they've got problems, we do try and encourage people, if everything's okay, we try and keep chemicals out. We don't want to put a lot of chemicals in the house all the time.
So when you say keep chemicals out, you're talking about keep them outdoors on the exterior of the home?
As much as possible.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the
starting
goal, right?
That is.
Yeah.
That is. When I started out in pest control, you had a little aluminum B&G sprayer,
Yeah.
and you went inside and outside every single time.
Oh.
Okay. And a lot of the chemicals back then really had a bad odor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The older folks would tell you, I'm one of those now, I guess. But those older folks, they'd say, oh, yeah, if it doesn't smell, you didn't do it right.
Oh, wow. That's like it's not clean unless it smells like bleach.
Exactly. So you kind of got that. Now we've got much better chemicals to use. I feel like in a lot of areas, whether odors, longer acting, wider spectrums,
Yeah.
less odors. And so if somebody's not having a lot of problems, we'll try and go ahead and work on the perimeter. If we can do a good heavy job on the perimeter, I would say probably 95% of your insects are coming from the outside.
I was just thinking,
Mhm.
I don't think in the years that I've had pest control, they've never come in my house.
No. And if it's good, most of the homes I've taken care of in the past, maybe 12, 14 years, that didn't have to go in.
Okay.
Occasionally, somebody may have some ants in the kitchen. Come in, speak, we just spot treat that area.
Mm-hmm.
And then just keep moving, go ahead and work on the outside. And when people realize we're trying to work with you, this is, asbestos was great stuff when it came out.
Yeah.
You find out later, oh, that's not so nice.
Right.
We don't want to find out later that there were problems.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different chemicals on the market. What we're using is designed to hold up about 90 days. So we offer a quarterly treatment.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Earlier when I started in the business, it was about 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
So you had monthly. You had inside and outside. Now we'll put 3 to 4 gallons out around a house. And that should, if we do it right, that should take care of things, for 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
90 days. If there's a problem, we'll come back. So we guarantee it at that point.
I gotcha.
So I'm not sure if I answered all of your question
You did.
on that.
So let's highlight what if there is a problem.
Yeah.
Because once you see something, and I'm not
Sure.
I am a bug guy, but I know nothing
Gotcha.
about bugs.
Oh.
But like if you see a cockroach in your house, that means you've got more than one, right?
Maybe.
Okay. That's why you're here.
There are several different types of cockroaches. Okay. Most people aren't going to believe that.
Oh,
They just you say
I know you've got the big ones and you got the little ones, and the little ones are the German cockroaches, if I recall.
Cockroaches, they're ones that you'll hear people talk about 1 to 1 million in about 6 months.
Oh wow, okay.
It may be different
You
numbers.
mean
but
like
they will produce? Yes.
Oh,
One can turn into-
that just gives me yuck.
Those are the ones I know that are scary.
Yes, and so those. But again, somebody looks at a cockroach. Hey, what do you want to do about it?
Yeah.
You want to take care of whatever the issue is. If it is German, we deal with it on that basis. We'll come out monthly till they're gone.
Yeah.
Shouldn't take a long time. If they're American, some of the larger, your palmetto bug.
Okay.
That you'll hear about a lot of that. South Carolina,
Yes.
Florida, Georgia, those areas. We'll see that. We get them here. They're not always as big as what you will in some of these other areas.
Yeah.
I don't think we have the same growing season.
Some pulled up here.
Oh, there you go. Yes.
Ugh. Okay. Oh, the Germans are the creepy ones.
Yeah.
And those guys, there's a lot of health issues related with them.
Do they carry that's the bubonic plague ones, or
They can,
that's
yes.
what you read, you know?
Because they drag their bodies. So when they go to the bathroom, wherever they walk, they drag that with them.
Okay.
So now how many people would you say on average, before they call you the professional, that doesn't have a monthly service, like they try out the bug bombs and some spray they get from Walmart?
Sure.
It doesn't battle these guys, right?
There are techniques. There are some products out there that may work, but a lot of the stuff, you have to know a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah.
I say that, been 25 years. I'm not going to say that I know everything. Okay. So there are different ways to treat different insects. Some of our training is going to give us probably details that most people are not going to find on the label when they find something at Walmart or something to treat with.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
And some of the chemicals have different formula makeups. There's different formulations that may scare one insect away or run that one, that another one may feed off of it.
For real?
Right. So knowing what insects you've got, what type of roach you've got, what chemicals to use or what baits to use. Sometimes even different times of the year they will change how they're feeding. So they may want a higher protein or a different formulation of something. So little things that we have picked up on a little bit over the years.
You automatically think, like a bug repellent or a bug killer, it's going to run everything off, not attract some.
Right. Well, and again, some of that is going to be more bait related.
Right.
Some of these insects, when you're talking about German roaches, you want to use the right baits for them. And I've even seen some of the baits at the big box store that may have a great product in it, but may not have the quantity that we're going to use.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
So if they use it properly, they might get good results with it, but it may take a little longer. So the persistence isn't always there when you know it's going to take 2 or 3 months to get rid of one of these insects. Somebody just goes by and they buy this stuff, they try it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then, we're just not getting rid of the problem.
Yeah.
So, just things that we learn. Everybody has their profession that they learn, how to take care of issues.
So if you just Google like bug effects that they have on people, psychologically they can create anxiety, insomnia, PTSD.
Yes.
A lot of those are bed bugs, which we'll get to here in a bit.
Sure.
And then physical issues, allergic reactions, disease transmissions, skin irritations, contaminated water, respiratory problems, and then poisoning from like spiders and scorpions.
Sure.
Is that stuff you see and hear about? Or
Yes, to some degree.
Yeah.
We run across a lot of different things like that.
Ugh.
We've got some insects that you would never think in a million years. A larva of a carpet beetle has these little bristles on them. And if you get a large quantity of them, they get up in the beds or something.
What's a carpet beetle?
It looks maybe like a miniature ladybug.
Oh.
Okay, maybe the size of a pinhead, a little bit
Yeah.
bigger. And it's going to have that rounded shape about it. And doesn't look like anything. Sometimes you'll get an infestation in a house. Again, they don't look that alarming. But the larvae look like a little bristly caterpillar, very tiny. But those bristles will come off. And if they will irritate,
Mm-hmm.
they can have allergic reactions or just having those bristles.
Like an antihistamine reaction.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So not a doctor on that end, but we do see some of this,
Sure.
roaches, German roaches in particular, because of them dragging their bodies, the waste gets
Mhm.
drug all over, and then, it gets airborne, cleaning, brushing, just walking around. If you're in a bad infestation, I've seen them walk, falling off the ceilings,
Oh.
and so the waste.
it's bad then.
That's
Right,
why you
the-
need the hat.
It does have its place.
Yes. Ugh.
But when you get that type of thing, you want to stress to people, this is a health issue,
Of course.
and not only do we want to get them out of here, but there needs to be a cleanup when you've got issues like that, a process of getting that out of there.
You've heard a lot of stuff about ladybug infestations. That's a pretty big deal, right?
Yes. Again, tolerance, what's somebody's tolerance? But when you get large numbers, you'll get odors with them.
That's,
You can
yeah.
have allergic reactions with some of that.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
They can die in the walls and cause secondary infestations of other insects
Wow.
that come about with them.
I heard somebody talk about roaches having an odor. You can smell
Yes,
roaches when you walk into a house.
Well, if you think about them dragging their bodies, a lot of ammonia and stuff in the waste. So when
Oh.
you figure a million roaches,
Yeah.
there are odors that go with them. So,
Have you been into a place with a major infestation of roaches?
oh yes, I mean if you're in this business for any amount of time, 6 months or a year, you're going to see something.
Just
that's
6 months or a
bad.
year.
Yeah, you're
It's not like 20 years.
No. You'll see things.
I've been in places where like you go to turn on the light switch and you're almost like pushing some out of the way to get to the light switch.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
You serious?
Yeah.
They're just not nice. They're
And you can't control them. I heard at one point in time, and I don't know how accurate it is, that every month that you have roaches, it takes about a month to get rid of them.
Oh,
Ugh.
I don't know that I would go that far.
Yeah.
But again, the products we've got now, if you use them correctly, you can get, I would dare say, if somebody's working with us, and that does require, roaches can require teamwork.
Of course.
We'll have people sometimes that say, you're the bug guy, fix it. And when there's a lifestyle change involved, keeping the house a little cleaner, picking some things up, keeping dishes clean, some of it can just be little things, that a lot of us we do take for granted. No, we just clean up after. Sometimes you've got lifestyles.
Mhm.
I was a part of a
that promote
project
it.
where they had roaches real bad. It was some people had moved out and they went in and put a bug bomb off. And there was guys on the roof when they did that, and they saw all the roaches coming out the vents, out the top of the ceiling, or the roof out exterior. It was everywhere. They were just coming out everywhere, which you think about it and you're like, man, those poor neighbors, because they're going somewhere.
Sure. And it can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen. I'm not a big fan of the bug bomb, because sometimes that will push them out into areas we may not have had to treat before.
Yeah.
A lot of times your roaches, the German roaches, will stay fairly close to their food and water sources.
Of course. Yeah. About like us, right?
Right, exactly. I like being near the kitchen.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, you put a fogger off, you might kill the ones in the general vicinity, in the immediate vicinity, but the ones on the outer edges, a lot of times they'll run. So then you may take them from the kitchen out into the living room or dining room or bedrooms.
Oh man, that's scary.
And they look at it a lot different than what we do. We kind of live on this level. When they run, they don't see the walls or the ceilings. They go this way, they go down. If you have upstairs, downstairs, they don't just stay right here. They're going to run whatever direction gets them away from the problem.
A roach is one of those things, like if you're, because I always panic and think about stuff. What if I have a handbag and I set it down and a bug gets in my handbag and then I bring it into my house? Is it going to create like an infestation?
Sure, it can. It can. Yeah, 2 different instances. We had someone come in our house several months ago and had a computer in a little leather satchel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Opened the satchel up, pulled his computer out, and roaches started running around.
So roaches go inside the electronics because they're warm, right?
They like it, yes.
So my daughters, I mean your daughters too, but they all turn in their, issued laptops back into school all the time and pull them back.
See, we don't get to bring ours home. Ours stay at school.
Yeah, I love that because I always worry. I'm like, wow, what if they put her laptop next to someone else's laptop,
Sure.
whether it's bed bugs or roaches?
It can happen.
Yeah.
I won't say we see that a lot, but I'm sure that.
What's the odds of knowing where they come from?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
I worry about packages coming in the mail.
Yeah.
It can. They will a lot of times lay eggs in the corrugation of boxes.
Mm.
And so if it comes out of an infested warehouse,
Yeah.
we would get this at times from years ago. I took care of a restaurant that there was a chain of them, and our company took care of
Mm-hmm.
the whole chain. And if we saw roaches in one of them, we immediately call the other technicians. Let the restaurants in your area know your distributor's bringing some roaches in.
Right.
So they would let their managers know we're looking for it because we don't want it to become an infestation. But then they may call the distributor and say, hey, you need to catch this. So, you've got to work together on some of this.
Yeah.
And it's inevitable. Places like that, they're going to get them at some point.
Sure.
Just how do you combat them and how do you kind of keep
Sure.
them away? But what kind of tips would you have for someone like me or Savannah or the normal listening audience to avoid those things?
Any cardboard, you eliminate it as soon as you can. When things are brought in, we'll go to places sometimes that we pack our groceries up in boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Get rid of the cardboard as soon as you can. Get the food out, get the products out, and take the cardboard out.
That's a good call.
I'm so bad about that. I'll leave a box by my front door for days.
Moving. People are moving a lot. They get boxes from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, eliminate, go when you get moved in, empty the boxes, get rid of the cardboard.
Oh, we moved in 3 months ago. I still got boxes laying around.
And it's you would probably know at this point, but it's a good rule of thumb.
Of course. No, that's the goal too. I mean,
eliminate, and that's where you have to work together a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We can't fix everything, but when we get cooperation, people understand we're not just the final fix. Sometimes there are some changes that need to be made at the home or at the restaurant level, or, to say, hey, this will help.
Yeah.
Of course.
Hey, this is Pastor Corey. Would love for you to go check out our podcast, the Just Jesus Podcast. And if also you would like to go on our website, justjesusnow.com, you can check out some of our church services and some of our merch. Be blessed.
I hate to go down this road, but I'm going to. It's the bed bug road. I have a super paranoia effect on bed bugs. Me. So I've always been worried about bed bugs. I have a protocol when we go into hotels.
It's so tickled because he gets freaked.
Yeah. Sure. So I used to go in and search, and I'll tell you this story. So we were on our way to Florida, and we stopped at a hotel, and it's hard when we're as a family. Me, as an individual, it's easy. So I went in, I searched the room. We only take in what we needed. We left it in the bathroom. If you change, we change it. It's a lot of moving parts.
Sure.
But it was well worth it. So everything in the bathroom stays in the bathroom. We put on bedtime clothes, and the bedtime clothes stay at the hotel. We don't even bring them home.
You just left them?
Well, that's every time I stay at a hotel. We'll get there. Whatever I take to the hotel that's going in the room where the bed is, it's staying there for good. So it was like midnight when we got there. The room smelled musky and mildewy when I walked in. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's a sign of bed bugs, but it caught me off guard. So we went to sleep. I woke up and there was blood on my sheet. And I was like, man, okay. So I start looking around and sure enough, there comes something a little black and it was moving. It was tiny. You could barely see it. And I knew instantly what it was. So I start calling the hotel people and I'm in my boxers and running around looking like a crazy guy. And I've got the kids over in the corner. No one's moving. And
sure.
Yeah. I mean, what do you do? So I told Terry, I said, my wife, I said, all right, whatever we have on here stays in that corner. Everybody's going in the shower individually, of course. But so yeah, the hotel, they reimbursed us for the room, obviously.
Sure. They
reimbursed us for every piece of clothing that we had on because it didn't leave where it was.
Right.
But when I left there, I felt certain that we didn't bring any bed bugs with us.
Right.
But it would have just took one wrong move that we could have easily brought some home.
Sure.
And that's a whole nother ballgame. So I got some pulled up here. And I don't know how much, as a pest control person, I know I would not want to deal with these.
Sure.
Do you deal with them on a regular basis or?
I don't personally. Yeah. I've got some guys that we're talking about getting trained for it.
Right.
We can go back to where we started here. I'm attention deficit. I don't have the time. If I spent 2 or 3 hours in a room, I'm going to be bouncing off the walls.
Right.
When you're talking about bed bugs, you've got to have patience with them. Mm-hmm. You have to take the time pulling a bedroom apart, pulling the beds off, the mattresses, bed rails, moving furniture, dressers, drawers, all those rails and stuff that are involved. It takes some patience.
As a consumer, I really appreciate that you know your strengths and that is not a strength for you, because any pest control person can say, sure, I'll take care of those bed bugs. But I think that that's amazing that you are willing to say that is not my strong suit.
Sure.
I think that I probably shouldn't do that.
Oh, my goal is to help people.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's not up my alley, like I said, I've been in the business a while. I've got some guys that I've worked with. A lot of us, we've got several of us that have gone out on our own. I can generally direct people, hey, here's somebody over here. You live in this area. I've got some folks over here that can help you out. And they do. I've got a friend of mine that has had bed bugs a couple times, and he knows, okay, I'm going to call this guy when it happens. One of my best friends. Okay.
Yeah. And if you treat them wrong, you can push them out.
Yes.
And they can live for a long time without food, right?
Yes. So that's why I say when people do the foggers, the bug bombs, this sort of thing, some of those, I'm not a big fan of those. Okay. They served their purposes years ago when we didn't have other options.
Of course.
Right.
We have better options now for the most part. I use them occasionally for different specific treatments. But I've got some guys working now that we'll probably talk about that more.
That's awesome.
They have a better tolerance for time.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. They can sit there a lot better than I can.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid if we need to send something off to somebody else.
That's awesome.
It's
At least you have those contacts.
Sure.
I've got some bed bug facts that I was going to go over real quick, and you butt in anytime you want.
No, let's go ahead.
Bed bugs don't discriminate whether you're rich or poor.
Right.
Clean or dirty, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that's important because a lot of people think, oh, you got bed bugs, you're nasty.
Stigma. Yeah.
We had a guy years ago when he was speaking at one of our conferences, and he was like the bed bug guru at the time. We were just starting to hear about it probably 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. They were starting to make a comeback here. And he was telling me, if you remember the movie with Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery, The Rock, years ago. Mm-hmm. Okay, it was Sean Connery is prisoner, or he's in prison on Alcatraz.
Oh.
and Nicolas Cage. They bring Sean Connery out to help with the bad guys. One of his requirements was, I want to stay in the penthouse of the Hilton in San Francisco. So they bring him in there, and this guy's telling us about all this, and he said, I got called in to that penthouse. They had bed bugs.
Oh, no.
So we're talking about, at the time, 20 plus years ago, it's like $3,500 a night.
Yeah.
That's not discriminating.
Of course, yeah.
Right,
they don't
right.
care
They're
who
not
you are or where you're staying.
And
Jeez.
at that time, it was travel, air travel and stuff was, it was expensive.
Yeah.
So generally, it was the people who could afford to fly. Now you may be able to get a flight somewhere for under $100.
Right.
A lot of people traveling now, so you're carrying these things back and forth more now. But it started out, coming from Europe back here. And
I think one of the big things is people with money or means generally treat them as soon as they find them.
Sure.
Where some people might not have that ability, financial ability, and that kind of puts a hinder on. So you try things on your own and you fail and you push them out and they grow and grow and
yes,
it gets out of control quickly.
And that's the thing. If they're caught on the front end, they're generally in a bedroom. They like to be near a resting host.
Mm-hmm.
So when they get carried in, they go to where they can feed, and they stay close to that.
They feed on blood?
Oh, yes.
Like little vampires.
They are. You can watch them, and you probably got videos in there. You can watch them where you see them swell up.
Gross.
So now they haven't found them carrying a lot of disease that you get with mosquitoes.
Okay.
So they've not been focused on as like Zika and some of the things you get with mosquitoes. So it's not as big of an issue health-wise, but when you figure the numbers and you have a lot feeding, that can be pretty bad. So where we don't deal with them a lot, there are certain times of the year, again, when people are traveling.
Right.
Okay. Everybody goes out the first of the summer. You'll see a lot of bed bug calls early in the fall.
It takes that long.
Well, they bring them home, and then they start noticing as the numbers build up. Then people start realizing what's going on.
Wow.
So if we can catch them early, keep them isolated to that one area.
Oh, yeah, here we go. I found one.
Find one.
Yeah, let's pull that up.
Okay.
Ew.
There we go.
I mean, they're tiny. Look at it compared to the hair there.
Oh, yeah. And they may be a little bigger sometimes. I think every size. There you go.
Oh, it's just like filling.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
There we go.
Wow.
So each one of those instars has to have a blood meal. So when they hatch, they'll go through several different stages before they become adult, but they all have to feed. So, you can see where if you get large numbers of these guys, they're nasty.
Wow.
Oh my God.
It says a female bed bug can lay between 100 and 150 eggs in her lifetime, which is about 300 days. So imagine how fast those multiply.
Sure.
Wow.
And then, yes, so exponentially.
You're giving me a complex now. I never had like the heebie-jeebies when I traveled, and now I'm worried about it.
Well, and I don't know, but it's about $1 a square foot to treat a house is what I've been told in the past. Is that somewhat accurate?
It varies really from company to company.
Okay.
Everybody has different pricing. And again, I am dyslexic. So when we get into a lot of numbers, I kind of lose track sometimes.
Hey, I always say I do math, not math.
Yes.
So
it's expensive regardless.
Yes, you generally can look at small, maybe $400 to $800 a room, sometimes more, depending on the levels of infestation.
And that's not counting the things that you got to throw away or get rid of or
right,
cover.
And we would always try when I worked with this other company.
Yeah.
We would try not to, try and encourage people, just hold on to it. If you bring a new furniture back in, before we get rid of them,
Of course.
you're going to reinfest. So let's try and deal with these in the environment we've got.
That's the first time I've heard that. That makes perfect
Okay.
sense. Yeah.
That
Clean
does.
things up, have a clean room to work with, bag things up, wash it immediately. Don't let it sit outside. Bag it up, wash it. So, keep it out until you get the treatment. And then, the guys that are doing the treatments, I know some guys that they will, a lot of times, if it's not a major infestation, they can clear them a lot of times within a month or so. That like the first or second trip.
Yeah.
There are different price ranges for these. Different people
Sure.
handle it differently. Some will offer a one-time price.
Mm-hmm.
Some will do, we're going to treat it once. We'll come back until they're gone.
Right.
That's some just say we're going to treat it once, and if we have to come back, we're going to charge you again.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's just different ways. There are different ways of treating. You'll hear people using heat treatments, where they bring actually heaters in and heat the house, heat the rooms up to 130 degrees or so.
Oh, wow.
But that's every nook and cranny's got to be past that temperature, right?
Yes, so it may take hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
For everything. Mattresses get hot all the way through.
Oh,
You have
wow.
to stand them up, open drawers up on clothing, dressers.
When they treat these, I'm picturing they go in full hazmat suits. Like I would want some sort of NASA protection suit.
Again, I think it's going to depend on the level of infestations. If they look at it and they may deem it, this is a light infestation, we can take care of this. Again, I know the basics of bedbug.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have not experienced it because, again, I've just never had the patience.
Well, let's loop back around, and I didn't ask you. So, someone that isn't currently getting preventive treatments, and they're not seeing, bugs inside.
Sure.
What would be the advantage and the need for them to call and get that service set up?
If somebody is, I've had people ask, do you think I need pest control? What's your tolerance?
What's your tolerance? That's a good one.
Tolerance?
Yeah.
If you don't mind seeing a few bugs here and there, okay.
I have zero tolerance.
Okay.
I want zero.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we have that. And so if somebody has zero tolerance, you're probably going to want something on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I have some folks that some of our customers are semi-annual or annual, and they're okay to have us come out, clean the house out once a year, twice a year, spray it out. When we do that, we generally do have to go inside, whereas our preference generally would be not to have all the chemicals inside. So therefore, if somebody's having a quarterly treatment, we can generally do that and not have to put a lot inside. If somebody's semi-annual or annual, there's a good chance we're going to have to treat on the inside. If they're okay with that, again, it's preference, and they have the paycheck. It's not, we don't get paid till we do the job. So
Yeah.
you get to determine that. I'm not going to push that. Let people decide what they
So you
feel.
don't have, when you set up your stuff, you said everybody can be on a different plan. Like you're saying, you
Sure.
either do quarterly or yearly, but do you make them sign up for so long? Like a contract,
Yes and
I
no.
guess.
Yes
Okay.
and no. I'm going to be kinder and call it a service agreement.
Okay.
Okay. A little more politically, but there are companies out there that you sign that, you're there for a year. If you go 12 months and 1 day, you're there for another year.
Right.
It rolls back over.
Okay.
And you will pay them for that next year, whether you want it or not. So you have to be on top of it to call it, hey, we don't want service after this. Okay. I would just as soon, if somebody doesn't want me at their house, I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
We do a service, we offer a service agreement for those quarterly services, not to lock somebody in.
Mm-hmm.
One, it lets them know these are the times we're planning on being out.
Okay.
If we get outside of those parameters, we may have to charge another initial because they're probably going to have issues.
Of course.
Okay, so it's not like we're trying to do this to be mean, but what it does, it helps us. If I ever sold the business, it allows you to show a value for your business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure.
X number of service agreements.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps show you a value for your business.
So if
Absolutely.
somebody sees you on here and they think, man, Kenny's the guy to do my pest control, what service area do you cover?
We run down to about Watt Road,
Wow.
Kingston Pike, Hardin Valley.
Okay.
Just, and I'm going to say that's our limit. I've had a couple customers that moved a little bit further out
Yeah.
that we have still kept up with, but we try and keep it within an area that if someone calls with a problem, I can always schedule a time to go out and start accordingly. We could drive 2 hours out and start a service with somebody.
Yeah.
But the problem is if they have an issue, how quickly can we get out there and take care of it? And so if it's outside of that area and we have to take 2 or 3 hours to go out and tie your whole day up, then we've got customers that aren't getting service.
So you're somewhere around a 15-mile radius, give or take,
I would roughly, and
from the
again,
Carnes area?
yes, and now we go about to the river, Tennessee River. We don't cross over like into Maryville.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't do a whole lot in South Knoxville yet.
Mhm.
I've got some guys that, we've been growing.
Yeah.
So we're almost to the point where we may be able to offer some other areas. We do go to Oak Ridge. We go out to Corrington.
Mm.
And a little bit north, we've got a few accounts up towards Andersonville.
Awesome.
But we try and keep it within those parameters.
Yeah.
Again, it's not because I don't want to. It's because I'd rather be able to take care of those people in that area well.
Yeah.
And that means if there's a problem, you need to be able to get out within a day or so and take care of it.
That's perfect.
So,
Kenny, I can't thank you enough for coming on. It's been awesome having you. I've learned a lot. I think Savannah's had a blast talking about bed bugs.
I know I got a complex now, but it's been amazing.